Mike, you put last night's loss on Patrick Mahomes' shoulders?
No, not necessarily on Patrick. I got to put it on the offensive line play. And it's several reasons why, they didn't perform up to standard. And, we knew they had 3 guys out. I knew that was going to be a problem. I watched the offensive line in every football game that I watch with a keen eye, because people think the game starts with the quarterback and him having the ball in his hands. But it's truly about the offensive line, whether it's in the pass, it's in the pass game or run game. And they have to be stout up front. They have to get pushed. They have to protect, and they got to at least give the quarterback 2.5 seconds to scan the field. Patrick, he isn't used to that. He hasn't had that, and we see him scrambling around, and that's not him being his normal self. So it wasn't on Patrick. It was more so on the offensive line. They couldn't get pushed. They had no run game. They had no pass protection, and it was evident. So, Patrick isn't Superman. He's still a young man, still growing and maturing as a quarterback, and he still need all the pieces around him to be able to perform at a high level.
The reason
that's on
that
Andy Reid then, Mike.
Sorry, Brandon,
Nick.
just to be quick here. The reason I know people were like, Nick, you're not going to blame Mahomes. I would blame Mahomes if I thought it was on him. But it was a systemic failure by the team. And if you watch the game, how many inaccurate passes did Patrick throw? You can count them on one hand. And forget the circus throws he made while being chased that literally hit receivers in the face mask. Even the incompletions, they're on the receiver's body and they're getting knocked down. The two interceptions both hit receivers in the hands and got popped up in the air. And Brandon, when you said this is on Andy Reid, to build off that before I throw it to you, I do think the Chiefs were surprised by something they shouldn't have been surprised by. So this was, Dusty sent me this according to Next Gen, the lowest Todd Bowles team has blitzed in a game in 5 years. But the reason that shouldn't have been surprising is coming into this game, the lowest he's ever blitzed in any game was against Andy Reid once before, and the second lowest was against Andy Reid a different time. The Bucs rushed four on almost every play and got 18 pressures when rushing 4 guys. You talked all week, Brandon, about how they're not going to be able to play man. The Chiefs said after the game, we were surprised they were playing so much zone. But you knew they were going to play so much zone, so why would the Chiefs not know it? I know Mahomes' stat line was awful, but it's really hard to be like, man, he had a wide open guy and he missed him. Man, he ran himself into pressure there. That's just not what was happening. So it's very hard for me to put this loss on Patrick.
Yeah, and that's why we have to talk about Todd Bowles and highlight Todd Bowles and the job he did and that defense did last night. Look, MJ averaged 33 points in the NBA Finals. LeBron James averages 28 points per game in the finals. They shut out Patrick Mahomes, the baby GOAT. That's how awesome of a job Todd Bowles did last night. They knew exactly what to do because they went back to week 12, and I can't highlight this enough. The first half, Coach Bowles, I don't know if he was just being stubborn, but he tried to play them man-to-man in blitz. And they almost had 40 points put up on them. Second half, they changed their ways. They start playing soft zone. They start just getting to Mahomes with the front 4. They took that same blueprint, that same game plan to Green Bay. Then they took that same game plan from Green Bay to the Super Bowl, and that's why they won. It's about scheme and personnel for what happened last night. That's what it's about, Wilds. Todd Bowles is legendary. We may never see a performance from a defensive coordinator or a defensive unit in a Super Bowl like this again.
I totally agree with you, Brandon. You know what I think was interesting, and you brought it up, how important the regular season was for the Bucs, where the Chiefs just felt like they came out and, they put it in third gear and just rolled. They had a few bumps in the road, but they were rolling. The Bucs, regular season was a little bumpy, but they lose to the Chiefs. Like, all right, now we know what not to do if we play you guys again. They win. Lose twice to the Saints. Right. Oh, okay, you put up 38 points on us. All right, Drew Brees, we got you next time. So for me, it was Todd Bowles constantly, a defense that evolved over the years, where I don't know if I'm pointing at the Chiefs' regular season, besides the fact that the guy never punted and then shanking balls off his foot, where it helped them. For me, it was the Bucs learning and getting smarter as they evolved for a first-year team. Go ahead, Nick.
There also, to me, was, and Mike, I want to know what you think of this, there was almost a institutional arrogance in the game plan. And by that I mean, I couldn't believe this when I read it this morning. And again, these are all courtesy of NFL Next Gen stats. The Chiefs had a 5-man protection in 92% of their dropbacks. So essentially every play, they weren't helping the offensive line. When we went into the game saying the biggest weakness for the Chiefs is the offensive line. The fact, it really did feel like, and by the way, if I were a Chiefs coach, I would have been guilty of this too, as demonstrated by my commentary all last week, that the Chiefs just felt like we're better than you. We're going to do what we do, and you're not going to be able to stop it. And when the Bucs started having some success, I'm really surprised the Chiefs didn't have a counter. They didn't have a second pitch to go to. They just tried to do what they were going to do, more of it and faster, and it never worked, Mike.
Yeah, well, if you look at Todd Bowles and what he's done all season, there has been a progression, and he's obviously one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, and that goes without saying. I worked with him for a long time when I was in Philadelphia. But there's no need to blitz. There's no need to bring pressure when you're playing a team who has 3 starting offensive linemen out. I'm going to rush 4, I'm going to play man, and I'm going to disrupt timing. Great game plan by them. Unfortunate for the Kansas City Chiefs that they didn't have all their players, true players on the field to make the game equal.
Look, guys, I had Coach Bowles as my defensive coordinator when I was playing for the Miami Dolphins. He is my head coach and ran our defense when I played for the New York Jets. This defense hasn't changed. It's just how he calls it. He can blitz. He can be super aggressive. He can show that he's blitzing, then back everybody up. It's just how he gets to his defense. He had Antonio Cromartie, he had Darrelle Revis, and it's the same thing. Palms, same hand signals. How they play stacks, how they play motion. It's the same exact thing. The only thing he did differently was he said, you know what? I'm not going to blitz. I'm not going to play man. That's what he did. He got Andy Reid, Nick, to your point, got to their counter, but they just didn't stick to it. What happened in the first half? They tried to do what they did, like you said. They were like, you know what? We are the Chiefs. Came out. We're going to do what we do. They weren't successful. Second half came out. What did they do? They opened up with a run. Then they hit Travis Kelce. Then they went back to the run. They were playing draw. Why? Because those defensive ends, those defensive linemen had their ears pinned back, and all they were thinking about was pass because they had the lead, and they were gashing them, and then they got away from it. What Andy Reid was supposed to do in the second half was stick to the run. They did it, and then they got away from it, and that's why the whole game got away from them come the end of the third and the fourth quarter.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.